All right, guys, it's true crime time again. I'm Ryan Nix.
And I'm Taylor Lynch.
And we're your hosts for Pure Malice, a true crime podcast.
Disclaimer, the information shared in this podcast or on this website is for informational and entertainment purposes only. The host will not be held responsible for any misled interpretation of the contents. The opinions and views expressed are those of the host and guests and should not be considered advice. We cannot guarantee the accuracy of any statements from guests or the sufficiency of the information. Trigger warning, discussion about violent crimes committed against children. Y'all hang in there with us because this is our first go around. So spoiler alert.
Bear with us.
You just cut me off.
Oops.
I was going to play this in the beginning, but whatever. I was just going to say, y'all hang in there with us. It'll get better. We'll get more natural. We won't be as annoying. No promises we won't ever be annoying because we will be, but we won't be as annoying. So
we'll get better.
Yeah. Just hang in there, y'all. Hang in there.
Hang on to your pants. You should see the look Taylor's giving me right now.
I just wanted to say the I word, but I promised Ryan.
Idiot!
Yep. I promised her a long time ago I would try and cut that out of my vocabulary, reduce the amount of times I say it to her because she gets her feelings hurt with that word. No, you do. But mainly because I think you know when I say it, I'm kind of mean it.
Oh, no, there's no kinda to it.
And I'm the nice one. Yeah.
Compared to me?
The three of us.
You really think that? I thought you were just meaning out of you and Brittany.
No.
Depends who you ask.
Well,
and what day you catch us on.
I feel like it's dependent on the situation, but I feel like for the most part, I'm not. How do I put this nicely?
She's slow though.
No, I'm not. You're the slow one.
Okay. I'm cutting that out.
But I feel like I'm the more mellow, not as high maintenance.
Okay, yeah, mellow, high strung.
Yes, I'm not as high strung, and most of the time I'm nicer and a little more passive, whatever.
Yeah. Okay, this is true.
But when you catch me in the wrong way,
boom, boom.
We're gonna bring guns into this. Thought we were trying.
Well, nobody knew that was a gun.
She just did a handgun at me.
I said pew pew.
She doesn't even like guns.
Lil Wayne's coming out with a new album. Boop boop.
Oh, we should be endorsed by Lil Wayne.
That literally made me think of Lil Wayne because I went pew pew. No, you don't know that one.
Listen, I love me some Lil Wayne, and I've been watching a lot of TikToks that have no wonder millennials are so hyped up all the time and just ready to fight and because no, for real,
all of our music
because all of our music is get crunk with it. Yeah, Yin Yang Twins, Lil Wayne, Luda.
Love all of them.
I do feel like Nelly was most chill out of everybody.
Yeah, he was a pretty chill guy.
All I can think of right now with Nelly is the baseball field song.
Swing better, swing better.
Yeah, that one. Okay,
that one.
Keep going. All of them. It's the beginning of T-ball, so we're ready.
Pop,
pop, pop.
Hopefully, we'll get some tea.
Once again, you're an idiot. I know, man. Okay, let's finish this, or we're never gonna get through one episode.
This is true.
This is our fourth, fifth take.
I know. Okay. All right, guys. So let's go ahead and get started on the case. We're going to be covering the Girl Scout murders. It is an unsolved case. I am going to start out by saying that no one was ever put in jail for these crimes. The people that they looked up, the main one is now dead, so that's kind of disappointing, but we're going to go ahead and start on the case.
So we're going to be talking about the Oklahoma Girl Scout murders. As Ryan said, unsolved. So let's talk a little bit about the layout of the camp, okay? So this is a camp that spreads across 410 acres. Originally opened in 1928, and it was named in honor of H.J. Scotty and Florence Scott. These two people were Boy and Girl Scout volunteers, and they donated so much time to the program.
And money.
They initially donated 24 acres, and then it was added onto each year.
So in 1956, they planted a bunch of pine trees throughout the property to really kind of make it what it is or what it was whenever all of this took place. They had summer camps and would teach kids how to be outdoors and how to be independent. These summer camps would happen in 2-week increments starting on June 12th, 1977, at Camp Scott near Locust Grove, Oklahoma. And that's whenever the murders took place.
I'm just going to say, I don't think you could have gone to this type of camp, Brian.
Oh, I did go to a Girl Scout camp. I spent an entire week and I got lice while I was there. Yeah, sick, right?
Ew.
I actually love camping. I just,
Not the lice kind.
no, not the lice kind.
Anyways, all right. One group for 1 week, and then second week, another group of girls would come in for this summer camp. 140 girls came for this particular camp, and they had 12 campsites set up that were each named for Native American tribes because it was a large Cherokee area with a lot of reservation land around it. Each unit had their own tent set up, 7 to 8 of them, and they were spread into age groups. The youngest kids were put out into the Kiowa. Since mom thinks she's Cherokee. She's
Yeah.
totally not.
She's not.
She swears she is.
She's not, though.
So 140 girls came in for this particular camp, and they had 12 campsites set up that were each named after Native American tribes because it was a large Cherokee area with a lot of reservation land around it. Each unit had their own tent set up, 7 to 8 of them, and they were separated into age groups. The youngest kids were put into the Kiowa unit, technically 8 tents.
And if we mispronounce any of the names of the Native American tribes, we apologize in advance. But we did try to look it up and get the pronunciation right.
The tent we'll be talking about is tent number 7.
And so technically it is 7. So the counselors had their own tent, and there was not a counselor in each tent with the girls, which is kind of in my head how I would have thought it would be set up. But this is a whole different time. This is in the 70s. So things were a little different then.
So did we know like the age group of this particular unit?
Yeah, so this was the youngest one, and it ranged from 8 to 10.
So you're talking like
Super young.
You're talking like first or second graders to like third or maybe fourth graders.
Yes.
That's crazy with no adult supervision whatsoever.
None.
Okay, cool. All right. So each tent was on a wooden platform, and it was 14 by 12 feet with a fabric tip top and a flap for the door with nothing but woods surrounding them. So we're talking like true A-frame tent.
Legit
like,
camping.
Legit. Wow.
Middle of nowhere. Now, there was a facility close by where they could go to the bathroom and take showers. And theirs actually was probably the closest to like the showering station.
Okay.
But still, there was no actual supervision.
With that, obviously, the fence that they did have out, it just didn't quite surround the entire area.
Mm-hmm.
And people have said that the gate was up and wouldn't have stopped anyone who wanted to go into the area. So they had it, it just wasn't sufficient.
It definitely was not like a security gate. It was just a gate that anyone could come through. And we'll post pictures of it in the show notes so that you can see it too.
So the way that they had their tent set up is that they had the counselor's tent and then the other 7 tents lined up in a row. I say that to point out that the counselors could probably only see 2 of these tents at any given time. So the rest of them, it would be like pitch black, dark, good luck. Not going to be able to see. Like, I don't know.
Definitely not going to be able to see them, which is kind of weird to me that the tent with the 3 girls that we're going to be talking about today, they were the youngest ones. They were set up in the tent furthest away from the counselor's tent. Strange.
Yeah, that's crazy. All right, let's focus on the girls. So the girls that we're going to be focusing on are 10-year-old Doris Denise Milner, who went by Denise, 9-year-old Michelle Gousset, and 8-year-old Lori Lee Farmer. Oh, that's like such a sweet little name.
It is such a cute name. And once we get into her description, she fits her name very well. Lori was actually the youngest girl at the camp, but she was said to have a very mature nature for her age and that she was very gifted. But either way, she was 8 years old.
These 3 girls were tent mates at the camp. How the tent mates were set up is basically when you first arrive at the camp, you got to pick your own tent mates. These 3 girls didn't know many of the other girls at the camp, so they ended up staying together in one tent.
So there was supposed to be a 4th girl, but due to an error, luckily for that 4th little girl, she ended up staying in a different tent for the night. The counselors and the admin people did not want to figure it out. So they said they would leave it the way it was for this first night and they would fix it the next day. The admin error pretty much saved the 4th little girl's life.
And these 3 girls' tents happened to be the furthest away, like you had said earlier, from the counselor's tent. So day 1 at the camp, generally speaking, all the girls were bussed in. They met and picked their tent mates and then went and did a couple of like camp activities. had dinner at the dining hall around 5:30, 6 p.m. And then on this opening day of camp, it just happened to start pouring. It was raining and storming the very first night of camp. They told the girls to go ahead and go to their tents for the night. There wasn't much else to do but write letters.
Yeah, so they told them to go ahead and go to their tents and write their first letters home. So the three girls went back to their tents. And just to give you an idea of what each girl was like, Lori, the 8-year-old, she was from Tulsa. Her father, Charles, known as Bo, was a doctor. She was an adorable little girl. She was exceedingly brilliant. Her father said that she spontaneously recited the Pledge of Allegiance at 16 months old, which is kind of crazy to think about. She could solve a 100-piece jigsaw puzzle by age 2. She skipped the second grade, and it was determined later that she had an IQ of 130 and was thought to have the mental age of a 10-year-old in the second grade. So again, she was extremely intelligent for her age. Her mother, Sherry, said that the thing that haunts her today is that Lori wasn't sure if she wanted to go to this camp or to YMCA. And her mother decided that since she couldn't pick, she would pick for her, and she picked the Girl Scout camp. She also decided which week of the camp to send Lori to because there were 2 options, and she just happened to pick this week. And so she has been having to live with that decision.
And to think, I wonder what made her decide that, which I guess I ask those really random questions, right? I couldn't imagine the guilt. Okay, this week maybe her brother was out of town, or her dad had a conference, or maybe we wanted some alone time, so mom and dad got to spend more time together. Instead of sharing it with her, we sent her to camp. So crazy.
The letter that Lori wrote from camp said, "Dear Mom and Dad, and Misty and Joe and Chad and Kathy, we're just getting ready to go to bed. It's 7:45. We're at the beginning of a storm and having lots of fun. I met 2 new friends, Michelle Gousset and Denise Milner. I'm sharing a tent with them. It started raining on the way back from dinner. We're sleeping on cots. I couldn't wait to write. We're all writing letters now because there's hardly anything else to do. With love, Lori." So she seems like a sweetheart. She was going to be turning 9 on the 19th while she was there at camp, and her family had already planned to come up and surprise her at camp for her birthday.
We're also going to talk about 9-year-old Michelle Heather Gousset, who was from Broken Arrow. She was very intelligent as well. She loved to read and was very close to her family, especially her sibling, who was an older brother, Mike, who was 13. She was shy, but very sweet. She had attended Camp Scott the year before. Her letter was to her Aunt Karen, and it said, "Dear Aunt Karen, how are you? I am fine. I'm writing from camp. We can't go outside because it's storming. Me and my tent mates are the last tent in our unit. My tent mates are Denise Milner and Lori Farmer. My room is in the shades of purple. Love, Michelle." She was also known as being very athletic and very active. She loved soccer, and she was really into raising plants. Her favorite was her African violets, which she took very good care of. She asked people before she left for camp to take care of her African violets. It was a main concern of hers. She wanted to be a math teacher like her mother and would be turning 10 on the 22nd. Her mother had bought her a bike for when she got home.
I thought it was funny that you thought it was an odd fact to throw in there that,
Yeah.
the walls are purple, but it just speaks to the innocence of a child. One of the things that
Yeah.
she noticed was the
The things
quote
that she
unquote
can
decorative
point
nature
out,
of the tent. Yeah.
Well, and it's also speaks to maybe how intelligent these kids really were, because most kids aren't describing all the things around them.
Mhm.
It shows you how their minds are firing and triggering.
And
Does
she
that make
didn't
sense?
say just purple. She said
Yeah,
shades
it
of
was a
purple.
shade,
Different
very
shades,
descriptive.
So the third of the girls was 10-year-old Doris Denise Milner from Tulsa. Her mom's name was Betty, and her father was Walter Milner. He was actually a police officer in Tulsa. He had been awarded a Medal of Valor for his role in stopping a robbery suspect in 1996, and he died of a heart attack at age 53 in 1997. And he's actually buried right next to his little girl. So she was also a very smart child. Her teacher said that she was one of the kindest and sweetest little girls that you'd ever met. She'd actually saved her money from selling Girl Scout cookies to go to the camp. In 4th grade, she got an award for having the best grades in the entire grade. She taught herself to read and write at the age of 4, and she devoured books. She also loved dancing and gymnastics. She had one little sister who was 5 at the time, and they were inseparable. That's actually what she was most upset about whenever leaving for camp. was leaving her little sister. And she was actually supposed to go to camp with a few friends, but at the last minute, the friends backed out, which is why she ended up not knowing anyone at camp and ending up in this tent ultimately. So she was pretty anxious about going to the camp whenever her friends backed out. Her mom said that she actually had to convince her to try it, that it would help her be more independent, and that if she didn't like it, all she had to do was call and her mom would come get her. The letter that she wrote said, "Dear Mom, I don't like camp. It's awful. The first day it rained. I have 3 new friends named Glenda, Lori, and Michelle. Michelle and Lori are my roommates. Mom, I don't want to stay at camp for 2 weeks. I want to come home and see Cassie and everybody. Your loving child, Denise Milner." To make it that much sadder, Denise actually had a breakdown right before getting on the bus to go to camp, and a counselor in training named Michelle Hoffman testified that she saw her breaking down and approached her and her mom and said, "I'll sit with her, I'll take care of her, don't worry about it." She said that she sat with her on the bus and told her how fun it was going to be and really kind of talked up the camp to help Denise through that, and that it did calm her down a little bit. She also said that right before the bus left, Denise's mom came on the bus and said, "Can you please make sure that if Denise wants to call me, please help her call me?" The counselor said, "Yes, absolutely, I will." Her mom also told Denise that if she wanted to come home, she would come get her, but that she just really wanted her to give it a try. So after the girls wrote letters, they had story time with the whole unit and gave them snacks, and then they went back to their tents for bedtime. Now, according to one of the counselors at the camp, Dee Elder, she said that Denise got upset and said, "Can I call my mom?" So Dee said that she comforted her and said, "Listen, why don't we call her in the morning?" Kind of convinced her to stick it out for the night. Lights out was around 10:30.
I can't imagine the guilt of like those teenage counselors. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like that's a lot to put on someone of that age anyways. But yeah, after the fact, especially with some of the details that we get throughout the case.
Yeah, and what they testify to or whatever. It's
And
just sad to me
hearing and-
because I think about it and like for my kids, like sister's a prime example. Every time she's literally mom lives less than a mile down the road from me.
Mm-hmm.
And she calls and she knows if you want me to come get you, like I will always come get you. You just have to, call or whatever. So I can't imagine being did it say how old the counselors were? Like what the age range was?
Yeah, like 15 to 21,
I'm
22.
assuming it's like working like labor laws. So most of them are probably around, if I had to guess, like high school to early college.
Yep.
Well, that's a lot.
It is a lot.
Especially if you've never had kids, trying to talk the children down. You don't get enough training.
And that's something else we'll get into too, is the lack of training they had for the counselors who are in control. They're the authority for these kids,
I'm sure they're also thinking like, oh, it's not that bad. You're going to end up having such a good time, and thinking about their memories of things that they've done like this, not thinking, no, this child is desperate and really wants to go back home and is terrified and, all the different things.
And I was the kid who I wanted to get away from home so bad. I always wanted to go to my friends. I wanted to go to camps. But the second that I got there, I was so homesick and I immediately wanted to come home. And same with our parents. They would every single time I would call and they would come pick me up.
Yeah, mom would always, and I was opposite of you. I'm like, oh, I'm going to camp. Cool. And I never, like I was there for it. I was ready.
So lights out was around 10:30, but around 12:30 a.m., which would have been technically June 13th, another counselor named Carla Willett. Sorry if I mispronounced some of these names. Just bear with me. She woke up and she heard some of the girls laughing. Seemed like they were coming from the bathroom. So she decided, I guess I need to go get them. So she went, she got them, she brought them back to their tent, which was tent 1. At 1:30, Carla woke up again, along with the other counselor, and they heard a group of girls giggling in tent 4. Carla went to the tent and told them, "Okay, guys, let's try to go to sleep." But as Carla was walking back, she heard a weird sound from the forest, which would later come back and kind of haunt her. Whenever she explained what the sound was, she said it was not an animal, but a low guttural moan. She said it sounded like a cross between a bullfrog and something else. And keep in mind that technically, yes, the counselors did have some training as far as things to look out for, what certain sounds were.
Like wilderness, like safety.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And if you've never heard like a bullfrog.
Ooh, let's see if Taylor can do bullfrog sound.
I can't. I'm not good.
You want to try?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, probably not even close.
But like
we did
for
look
real, If you've never heard a bullfrog call, it is a little daunting. So for it to be a cross between that and like something else, I don't know. It's just, I'm sure it could be extremely creepy if, you're talking middle of the night.
Middle of the night in the
If
woods.
I'm the counselor, I'm like, I'm going to go back to my tent now.
Which is exactly
running across the next 3 tents to get to mine.
It's exactly what she did. She ended up saying that it was definitely not an animal sound. And later on, she ended up saying, I didn't know what it was, but I definitely should have said something. Either way, she thought that the sound was weird, but she said that she continued to hear it off and on throughout the night. She also said that she ended up seeing a very dim light in the forest that night. And whenever she did see it, she shined her light in the direction of it and the light went off. She said that she was kind of starting to freak herself out. She thought, okay, wait, this is just me. It's my mind playing tricks on me. I'm in the middle of the woods. Like get it together. She thought she was just hearing things, seeing things, but she went ahead, she checked on the kids, and then she rushed back to her tent. So during this time, while everyone was sleeping, there were several items stolen. Purses were missing, eyeglasses, which we'll come back to. And then another report came in from another counselor, and they had also seen the dim light near the Kiowa unit.
And all I'm thinking with the dim light, because we're talking about what, 70s, right?
Yeah, late 70s.
So all I can think of is one of those like handheld hunting, a spotlight kind of that you could dim down. In reality, it was probably one of those like RC big square batteries.
It was a big round one.
Thinking like that 70s show.
Yeah.
In my mind, like
love that show.
Eric and them in the woods.
It was said that it didn't look like a flashlight, just a very dim light. Then campers were reported to hear screaming, and people ignored this. They just wrote it off as kids playing around. It was the first night of camp, a little bit rambunctious. And I mean, that was usually how it was night one of camp, generally speaking. So that's kind of why they did that.
Well, and I think that also probably speaks to the lack of maybe, I wouldn't say like just training or even like maturity, but like the lack of like experience. Because I feel like screaming when you get to an adult age, like you have kids or you have nieces and nephews, like that kind of stuff, that hits you a little different. As a mom, like you can tell with your kids that scream, like she's playing or he's playing or whatever. But like even with that, in the middle of the night, if there's a squeal, like there's a difference between, and like I'm still going to go check either way. That would speak to maybe the maturity level, but like
I think all three
definitely the experience level and the lack of training.
And like you said, too, most of these kids are college, high school ages. So, yes, they don't have most experience with kids.
Like, honestly, most 8-year-olds aren't just screaming to scream, especially in the middle of the night. Okay, it could be night terrors. It could be, some of these other things. But even then, like, you would think you would go check on those things.
I agree.
So either only the campers heard it or they just completely ignored all of it. Which is crazy.
Either way, it's not good. Then at 2 a.m., the unit near the Kiowa unit reports that they heard a screamy kind of voice of a girl scream, "Mama, mama." So again, they chalked this up to being the first night of camp, having kids be a little bit more rambunctious than normal, and they left it alone. So again, that goes back to what Taylor just said. It's crazy.
Well, I feel like that's hard too, because if you're screaming mama, mama, or daddy, or
that right there is not something that should have been ignored.
That's like a distress call. That's not just like, if that is their comfort person, not knowing who their comfort people are. But like, if you hear that,
either way,
that's some sort of distress call.
I agree. It's something significant, you know, for sure. After the fact, the camp said that no one would have planned for what happened, that they had a meeting beforehand where they went over security measures, which were basically, if you see anyone in the camp, tell them it's private property. So the counselors definitely weren't equipped to deal with some of the things all of the things that happened on this night, things they saw, things they heard. And later on, one of the parents of the victims said that if they had seen the actual tent that the kids were going to be sleeping in, she would never have sent them to that camp. And I know that hindsight is 2020, right? You can look back and say, oh, this or that.
I guess my thought with that is, this is the 70s. You've got to know what type of tents were there. It's not the type that you have today. I guess it surprises me. Like, maybe they were thinking there were bunkhouses or something. I don't know what it was advertised on, but it does surprise me that a parent would be so upset about what type of tent they were in. I think maybe it was probably for that parent, what it boiled down to is the lack of having supervision within the tent itself. For
And
that age.
security as far as just the tent went, probably the flat for a door. Yeah, that kind
Yeah,
of thing.
like, I don't know, because I can't imagine top of the line 70s camping gear was all that impressive.
And that's my thought too here is that this is the late 70s. Yes, it's a different time, different ways of thinking, and obviously not as advanced on a lot of things. So for me, also, the tent, eh,
I don't know. It
it is
just
what
makes
it is.
me wonder though, like, was she really upset about the tent itself or like the conditions of not having the actual supervision either closer or all of them within the same area, big tent?
During the same night in the Kiowa unit, one of the girls in tent 6 said that she woke up in the middle of the night to someone opening the flap of the tent and shining a light inside of it. She said that she sat up and looked, and it was clearly a man standing there staring at her. She said that they just kind of sat there staring at each other, and then he closed the flap and walked away in the direction of the last tent.
Well, it makes you think there's actual statistics that read when victims look the person in the eyes, they're less likely to become that actual person's victim. If she subconsciously did that, maybe that's the thing that scared him away.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see what you're
Yeah.
saying. All of the counselors said that it was not them. So it's more than likely that it was the killer who did this to tent 6. So at 6 a.m. the next morning, Carla, the counselor, wakes up thinking she's going to be the first one to get to the showers. So she says that on her walk, she noticed that some sleeping bags were near the roadside outside of their tent. She thought that was kind of weird, so she went to go see what was going on with it. The sleeping bags were approximately 150 yards from the girls' tent and past the counselor's tent. Self-care isn't just a luxury, it's a necessity. At Vital Flow Aesthetics and Wellness, they believe in helping you look and feel your absolute best. Whether you're looking for a rejuvenating medical-grade facial, Botox, fillers, or help on your weight loss journey, their expert team is there to enhance your natural beauty with personalized care. Ready to glow from the inside out? Book your appointment today at Vital Flow Aesthetics and Wellness and experience the confidence you deserve. Located inside Tejas Urgent Care in Mejia, Texas. Call or text now to book your appointment at 254-310-7131. Again, that's 254-310-7131. So as she approaches the sleeping bags, she then sees the battered body of Denise Milner. She was nude from the waist down, her shirt had been pulled up, and her hands were bound behind her back with tape and cord. She'd been strangled with a cord which was still around her neck, and she'd been bludgeoned in the face. There were also 2 other sleeping bags near that sleeping bag, but they were both zipped up completely. So before Carla does anything, she runs back to the counselor's tent and she wakes up the other counselors, Dee and Susan, to have them go and check on all of the girls' tents because they didn't know who was missing. When they checked the last tent, they realized that these 3 girls were missing. Carla goes and she gets the nurse, and as the nurse ran over to check the sleeping bags, Carla ran up to the camp director's home, which was nearby, to tell them what was going on. The camp director was Barbara Day and her husband, Richard. They both go to the scene, and whenever they get there, the nurse immediately informs them that Denise is deceased. Richard then attempts to move one of the other sleeping bags without realizing that anything was inside of them. And this is whenever he learns that something heavy was in both of the bags. So Richard took the 3rd sleeping bag that Denise was on top of and placed it over her body so that no one would see it. Because remember that she was naked from the waist down. He said that he wanted to maintain her dignity. So the police arrive and they open up the 2 sleeping bags that were zipped up, and inside of those bags were Lori Farmer and Michelle Gousset. They'd both died of blunt force trauma to the back of the head, and they believe it was done while they were sleeping inside of the tent due to the copious amounts of blood that were found inside the tent near the beds and splattered onto the tent walls. They believe that Denise was taken into the woods alive and then murdered there. She was the body that was found on top of her sleeping bag. They think that the other 2 girls who were zipped up in the sleeping bags were drug out of the tent in the sleeping bags and placed where they were. Michelle was slightly bound to her sides, and Lori was not bound at all. They found out later that Denise and Michelle had both been raped, and they found semen evidence during the autopsy which supported that. Lori's was inconclusive, but it was possible that she was killed immediately because she had very few outward injuries, whereas the other 2 girls had way more gruesome injuries to their bodies. They also believe that Lori was the first to be killed, Michelle second, and then Denise. All 3 of the girls were sexually assaulted, but Denise and Michelle were confirmed to have been raped. On scene, they found beer bottles and a crowbar, which they believe could have been used and what caused the blunt force trauma in the two older girls because the injuries were so extensive. But again, this was 1977, so they couldn't say for sure. So, Officer Harold Berry was the first officer on scene, and he was there pretty quickly because he lived close by. He did try to preserve the crime scene as best as he could right off the bat, and Sheriff Pete Weaver arrived shortly after Harold. It was determined immediately that Denise was the last one killed and that she was killed later in the morning than the other two girls, which means that she was kept alive longer. And we know this because Denise had a body temperature of around 70 degrees Fahrenheit, while Lori and Michelle's bodies had already began to show that they were entering into rigor mortis. Investigators said that Lori looked like she could have just been sleeping because her injuries were not as obvious because they were to the back of her head. The other two girls' injuries were much more apparent. Near the bodies, investigators also found a large red 6-volt flashlight with a big handle. And this is one that had a cover over the lens to make it dimmer. And then this lens also had a pinhole cut into it so that it would cast a very dim light, just like the one that people had reported seeing in the woods. Also, inside of the flashlight, they discovered that there was a wadded up newspaper, which they assume was there to keep the battery connected and to make it quieter. There was also a partial roll of electrical tape and then the cord that was used on the two girls and two of the girls' classes. Inside of the tent, there were bloody shoe and boot prints found, which made everyone wonder if there were two people because of the shoe and boot prints. The shoe print looked like it could be an adult size, and the boots appeared to be a military type of boot. But unfortunately, there was also a lot of contamination at the crime scene, and actually, one of the federal investigators left a palm print at the scene.
Well, and I wonder what was the standard issue uniform for federal agents or any agents really, back in that day, especially since it a wilderness camping area, right?
Right.
So park rangers, that kind of stuff. I'm assuming they would all be involved in this, like sheriff's departments or whatever. So I'm wondering what their standard issued uniforms would be because nowadays certain shoes or certain things.
And I'm sure it was the same there. Yeah, they had a certain uniform for sure. Basically, it was said that it was a military issued. But also, the autopsy later determined that weapons were used on the girls with someone using their left hand and the right hand.
At this point, are they thinking maybe two people versus one?
There were different kinds of knots tied into the cord that was used on the girls. So they were thinking it could be one person who was ambidextrous or it could be two different people. So that was a good thought. It was either a right-handed and left-handed person, so two people, or it was somebody who was ambidextrous. So the camp was immediately closed and they sent all of the campers home. And obviously they didn't want to tell the campers what was going on. What they did tell parents is that there was an accident at camp. So they bused all of the campers from Camp Scott to the Magic Empire headquarters, but whenever parents questioned further, they wouldn't say anything else.
Oh, I would be livid as a parent.
I think it was pretty wrong of them to not give details to the parents.
How timely were they in this? Because if it was oh, let's get a plan, bus all the campers, and then we'll call the parents.
Now, whenever I say that they told the parents of the three children who had been killed, they attempted to tell them. So whenever parents actually arrived to pick up their kids, they didn't know if their kid was part of the accident or not.
I can't imagine the mass chaos that would create. Bunch of these parents coming in, tell them, oh, there's accident. Everybody needs to come pick up their children. You tell three of these parents, yours were involved in the accident and they're actually dead, but don't give any other details. I can imagine the crazy rush.
So around 11 p.m., Richard Gousset was called at work by his wife, Georgianne, who told him that Michelle was dead, but that she had no idea how and she didn't know anything else. Lori Farmer's parents were actually not able to be contacted, so the camp officials used a family friend. They told that person, and then the family friend is who told Lori's parents that she died at camp from an accident.
Which is also crazy to me because you are going to call somebody who's not even a legal guardian of this child and give them information before you contacted their mother, their father, and you just gave them the details hey, by the way, can you get a hold of them?
That's my thing is it was your responsibility to get in contact with those parents to just stop whenever you don't get an answer from one or the other and to just go to a third party. It's crazy to me. They should have taken the time to make sure they got in contact with one parent or the other.
Well, and these parents sent these kids there trusting that, they were going to be supervised and trusting that these people truly cared about these kids and would do the right thing by them, would protect these kids, had everything in place. And then for them not even care enough to get a hold of them. And, if you can't get a hold of the parent, like that's one thing. That type of stuff happens, but it shouldn't happen to the extent of telling someone else, can you get a hold of them because their child died?
I
I
just
think that
can't.
you continue to call and you continue to call. If you happen to speak with a friend, you don't give any detail. You just let them know if you could go to them and let them know we really need a call.
I just felt like it was so wrong. I think that they should have persistently tried to get in contact with one of the parents to tell them directly, not to pass that on. That was messed up.
I'm a medical social worker, so I run into this stuff from time to time, not being able to locate next of kin or family members that really aren't compliant or like supportive of patient care. And so I kind of see where they're coming from to an extent, but I don't understand why you would actually release that information to someone who's not legit family. And once you get a hold of them, like say they're their emergency contact and that's how they were able to find out or whatever the case is, you should only contact them to talk to them and tell them, I really need them to give me a call. Can you please get into touch with them? But that doesn't mean you stop trying to get in touch with those parents. And that's where they went wrong.
So Bonnie Brewster, who was a family friend of the Farmer family, was also the executive director of the Magic Empire for the Girl Scouts program. And she refused to tell them what happened to Lori. In fact, she wouldn't even tell them. I guess it was one of their questions. Do you know what she ate that night? And she wouldn't tell them what she had for dinner.
And I could see that from her side, trying to protect them from additional pain of it. But at the same time, what would that one detail of harm? Was that her employer saying, do not share anything?
I agree with you on this. But Lori's father was quoted to say this about how he found out. It was from the executive director of Girl Scouts. I found out later that we were the third people that they called. They first called their insurance company, second their attorney, and then they called us. So ultimately, all of the parents of the three victims and the rest of the campers' parents found out the actual events and how their daughters were killed on the news. Yeah, you heard that right. They found out on the news. No one from the camp told them, and they heard it there. Ooh, you sound like a ghost. The Farmer family still believes that the Girl Scout camp should be held liable for what happened to the girls. And they actually filed a lawsuit, which we'll get into that in part 2.
Which I think that's absolutely appropriate.
I do too. So on June 14th, which was the next day, a camper named Wilma Tennant said that she was the one who woke up and heard screams and told her counselor, and that the counselor told her to go back to sleep. The next day, they took the wooden platform from the tent and airlifted it to a crime lab so that they could test everything. There was obviously a ton of blood on the floor of the tent, but strangely enough, it looked as if someone had tried to wipe up the blood. They used towels and sheets off of bed, and then they stuffed the sheets inside of the sleeping bags that the girls were in.
And that just takes me back to the type of training these counselors had to just shh a child.
Yeah,
Who's like,
to be
I
like,
heard
no,
screaming, hush,
fine.
bed.
Yeah, go to sleep.
It's your imagination. You shouldn't dismiss the children. You're like, no, I promise I heard. Because you can't, kids don't just stop. They're persistent in those situations.
In previous years at the camp, like in recent weeks before this crime took place, a few things happened. The Saturday before the camp opened, the camp director's husband, Richard, came across a stranger walking around the camp. The stranger was told that it was private property, he needed to leave, but that was the only action taken.
But you would think, given the lack of fence system, that if he had just seen them a week before that they would have some sort of security or additional night watch, something in place.
I agree. There was also a camp ranger named Ben Woodard, and he was a part-time counselor and part-time caretaker for the grounds. He found a slash tent flap with a 4 to 5 square inch section that someone had removed. And this happened hours before the girls arrived on Sunday.
Like little peeper hole?
Yeah. And he didn't say anything.
How do you not tell somebody of that? Like,
Red
You
flags
just
all over the place.
maintenance it and say, let me sew this tarp back
Let me
together
just
real
put a little
quick.
patch here.
To me, that's like a red flag, and it would be what happened here? We should investigate.
Even without knowing that someone had been, seen on the property a week before, either way, that should have been like addressed. 1 week before the camp was open to campers, 2 counselors said that they were followed back to their tent by someone with a flashlight in the woods. One other counselor said that she saw a man in the woods outside of her tent, and then counselor Michelle Hoffman, which was the 15-year-old who comforted Denise whenever she had the breakdown, and she said that someone had brought donuts during the session before camp opened, and the donuts were taken out of the box, and someone left a note inside the box saying, "We are on a mission to kill 3 girls." And it was signed Killer. What?
Why would you not report that to authorities? I'm assuming it wasn't. Somebody was like, oh, they're playing a prank on us. But that's not something to pretend that didn't happen or be passive about, because you also have sightings of somebody who's on this campsite. And then you have the flap incident. Had everybody communicated it and everybody been made aware of all these different things that were happening, this may have been prevented, or the kids would have been a little safer, protected. Maybe there would have been more security. You never know.
Mm-hmm. Had any of it been taken seriously and someone taken the time to just piece it all together? Yeah. So Michelle later testified to that, and she said that the note scared the crap out of her. So she brought it to the counselors, but Barbara Ohms said the coordinator of the spring session told her that it was probably just a prank, and she threw the note away. She testified and said that whenever she was given the note, they didn't tell me that a tent had been ransacked. So the same year, on April 1st of 1977, about a month or 2 before it opened, there was money stolen from within the camp. And the year before that, there was a peeping Tom reported. But no security measures were taken or had been taken or put in place, even with the other incidents that were reported.
Which all comes back down to like basic communication and lack of the security and training.
Agreed. All of them play
Like
a
that
role.
should have, that should have been communicated to the counselors as well. But then again, the way they handled telling the parents ignorance is bliss, or like playing naive to it, maybe they knew and they just didn't want to address it. And then,
Maybe so.
they just didn't. Oh, no, it's okay. Don't tell anybody. It'll scare them, or we'll lose money, because there's financial gain in all of this too.
Absolutely. So now on June 14th, the day after all of this happened, there was a group of campfire girls who were supposed to be showing up to their camp, which was just down the road. And they began their summer session and they stayed for the entire session, but they were accompanied by armed guards. Camp Garland, which was a Boy Scout camp about 3 miles from this spot, stayed open as well. Only 13 parents came to pick up their kids from the Boy Scout camp after the 3 girls were killed.
Well, I just wonder if that's also lack of information, because they were
It was all over the news.
Oh.
All over the news. So on June 15th, the tracker dogs were brought in. The media actually called them the Wonder Dogs. It was 2 German Shepherds and 1 Rottweiler that were specially trained. They were cadaver or tracking. Their names were Harris, Butch, and Butts. They were flown.
Terrible name.
I'm like, Butts would be so cute, though.
That's the one that I'm like, that's the worst name ever. Like,
Butts, come here to the butt.
you got to think these are like big bad police dogs, right?
They are.
So you have Harris, which is, I feel like, a formidable name. Like, okay, that's respectable. Butch.
Dutch.
Right. Oh, Dutch, which gets a little shady.
Makes me think of,
And then you have Butt. Who would he make mad to get the name Butts?
I don't know, but I love Butts. I just do.
He probably made the trainer mad.
Maybe.
Maybe he was a butt.
Okay, well, so they were flown in from Pennsylvania and they tracked where the killer entered and exited. From this, they determined that the killer or killers had entered the camp in the front and walked right by the counselor's tent to get to the girls' tent, and then walked them back by the counselor's tent again. So 3 of the counselors were questioned on the 16th, and they said that a lot of eyeglasses had been stolen, and one of the glasses that were stolen was found along the path the killer or killers took. There was also a purse that was stolen from the Kiowa unit, and it was taken the night that the murders took place. A telephone hotline was set up to call in hopes that it would help catch the killer. On June 19th, the Oklahoma governor said that he would bring in the National Guard to kind of help figure out this case. But Sheriff Weaver said no, he didn't want their help. Why wouldn't you want their help?
Which is crazy to me because I get maybe like jurisdiction lines and there's always turf wars whenever you get somebody else involved. But these are children you're talking about. Why would you not want all hands on deck and like as much support as possible?
Thank you. I agree. That'll come into play. You'll see the theory behind why he didn't want the help. They also ended up questioning 5 Boy Scouts from Camp Garland because in May, a kid who was described as pale and skinny came into the Boy Scout camp and randomly ate with the campers. He then stole a hatchet, a hunting knife, and food and then left. It was said that they told the adults, but that nothing was done about it.
That to me is super creepy too.
So creepy. So they look into the tape and the cord that was used on Denise and Michelle, and they discovered that it had been stolen out of a nearby farmhouse. The farmhouse that it was stolen out of was on a nearby ranch that was about 110 acres, and it was owned by 51-year-old Jack Schroff. He said that his home was burglarized and that those 2 items were 2 of the items that were missing from his house. There was also evidence that a campfire had been set up that night on a pond on his ranch. Now, they did question Jack, which again was the farmhouse owner, and they were able to confirm that he was out of town on the night of the murders, and he voluntarily took a polygraph test and passed it. Now, while this is going on, before the newspaper had any actual evidence, the newspapers print his photo in it with the word Slayer under it. Sheriff Weaver, out of nowhere, says, "What about this man?"
All I can think of right now is some Nelly lyrics, but I'm afraid to sing them because I think I'm wrong. I'm gonna laugh so hard if it doesn't say what I think it actually says. I'll tell you what I think it actually says so that
Okay,
we can
what?
have it for us. Hold on. I will do it after I read.
Oh.
Okay. No, I was right. I was kind of right. So in the very beginning, he says hot-ish,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I thought he said ah,
Oh.
which I'm wrong because he says hot-ish. But then when it goes to the shimmy, shimmy, cocoa, what? I thought it said shimmy, 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 cocoa puffs. Listen to it now. But really, I got it mixed up and it says shimmy, shimmy, cocoa, what?
What?
Listen to it, pow. Light it up and take a puff.
Pass it to me now.
I totally thought that was part of that other sentence. Shimmy, shimmy, cocoa puffs. Listen to it now. Light it up and take a puff. Pass it to me now. So yeah, that
We all know I
obviously
knew that
doesn't
one.
work. Yeah, you wouldn't know it. Oh, I feel like Uncle he would appreciate that.
Oh, yeah. I told Jackie at the last gathering if he heads to the barn to let me know. And he just started laughing so hard.
Okay, keep going. We're never gonna get through this
I know,
thing.
we're gonna hurry. Okay, not gonna get sidetracked. So while this is going on, the newspaper
Lies, lies, lies.
that sounded really good.
No,
I'm gonna go back and play it back. I think we'll see how deaf I
which
am.
means it was probably terrible.
It could be.
I'm saying I'm an awful singer.
I mean, we all know that from church, when she was
You know what?
moving on. Hold that.
The Lord's Battle.
The Lord's Battle?
That's what I was singing. And I was belting my sweet little heart out.
She was praising Jesus.
Yeah.
She
Yeah, it
was
was.
getting it.
Yeah.
And everybody knew.
And let me just tell you, this is no Baptist church with some like guitar or piano. This
there are
is
no
Church
instruments.
of Christ
Acapella.
acapella. And I should have at that time said, excuse me? Because I was getting it and I was praising the Lord and everybody was judging me. They were all sinners in that church that night, including my own 2 sisters and my mother who kept moving away from me.
I was crying in church, y'all. Not from my mom pinching me to sit still and pay attention to the sermon, but from Taylor and her wonderful, sweet angel voice.
Were you crying because it was so beautiful, or were you crying because you were so
to my
embarrassed?
soul. No, it was hilarious. I was just laughing. Like, it wasn't that I was embarrassed. I was just like, "Oh, shit, she thinks she's good."
I just want y'all all to know that Ryan did not learn a thing from church.
Oh, yeah. Pardon my language. I have a bleeper. I can bleep it out. That's what mom said. She was like, "Don't cuss in your podcast." Well, I've done very good.
Oh, Lord. Okay,
Okay, yeah.
keep going.
While this was going on, the newspaper prints his photo with the word Slayer under it. And then, out of nowhere, Sheriff Weaver kind of says, "Well, what about this man?" And this man is Gene Leroy Hart. So he had been a wanted man in this area and had been on the run for 4 years at this point. He'd escaped from Mays County Jail under Weaver's watch. And essentially, Gene had eluded Weaver for many years. So now, Gene Leroy Hart had been arrested and imprisoned because in 1966, he kidnapped two 19-year-old pregnant women from Tulsa, threw them in his trunk, drove them to the woods in Locust Grove, bound them using tape and cord, and sodomized them. He then drove them to another place. And while he was driving the two women to his other destination, he took both of their eyeglasses and he used them while he was driving. He arrived at the other location, which was a secluded part of woods, put duct tape over their nose and mouths, covered them with brush, and left. One of the girls was able to get her bindings off of herself and then assisted the other girl. So they were both able to escape, but he obviously had planned to kill them and failed because he put the duct tape over their mouths and their nose. They said that during the rape, he was making weird, low guttural noises, which were similar to the noise that the camp counselor heard the night of the girl's murder. He had also committed a few home invasions and burglaries while he was out on parole, and that's how he got caught again, and he ended up getting sentenced to 305 years for all accounts. So he actually escaped 2 times from prison. The first time he was caught pretty quickly, but the second time he sawed through his cell bars with a hacksaw and was able to escape.
Like, how do you just get a hacksaw in prison?
Thank you.
Are those things not monitored?
You would think. I don't know. I had the same thought. So Gene's mom lived 1 mile away from Camp Scott, and there were reports that people had seen a man who looked like Gene running from a cave nearby the camp and was carrying items that Jack said were missing from his home. On June 22nd, 2 brothers were out hunting and came across a cave that seemed to be a home for a human, and one of them saw photos, a flashlight cover, eyeglasses, and newspaper. The newspaper is the same newspaper that was shoved inside of the flashlight discovered with the girls' bodies. So the photos that they found, whenever Hart was in prison from 67 to 69, there was a guard who was also a wedding photographer on the side. And he made Hart help him develop the pictures from the weddings in the prison darkroom. What kind of prison has a darkroom?
Well, what kind of prison lets a hacksaw out of sight?
And the photos found in the cave were some of those that he had helped develop. So whenever the cave was found, the manhunt was on.
Oh, I'm supposed to be making that face. I just got Botox the other day. Only got 10 units.
How long ago?
2 days ago.
Oh, yeah, you still got a few days before it kicks in.
Hmm.
Okay. They also found another cave not far from that one where it appeared that someone had been living as well.
I guess that could lead into why maybe they also were thinking it could have been more than one person.
Yeah, because they found different locations. Because there was also an abandoned foundation, the basement part of a home that they found, and it appeared that someone had been living there as well. And inside of this, they also found graffiti on the wall that said the killer was here. Bye bye, fools. And the date was written as 77 6 17. So a few days after the murder. On top of that, the date was written separately. Unfortunately, this is where we will be leaving you.
I wasn't ready for that.
Oh.
I thought you were going to continue on with this case.
No.
Bum, bum, bum.
We're going to leave you there. Hopefully, you're intrigued enough to come back and listen to part 2.
I'm Taylor.
And I'm Ryan Nix.
And this is where we leave you. Come back next week for more
Pure Malice.
Woo-hoo. Signing off. Mic check, mic check. Oh. Disclaimer: the information shared in this podcast or on this website is for informational and entertainment purposes only. The host will not be held responsible for any misled interpretation of the contents. The opinions and views expressed are those of the host and guests and should not be considered advice. We cannot guarantee the accuracy of any statements from guests or the sufficiency of the information. Trigger warning: discussion about violent crimes committed against children.
Oh, Tarzan. I'm just, and I'm like, what?